After a less than stellar freshman season by LeBron James, who had just under 500 receiving yards, he would end up becoming a starting receiver for Ohio State late in the season, and there was little doubt across America that he would use that momentum to become one of the best receivers in college football. With a ridiculous combination of strength, size, and speed, LeBron was a freak amongst men. Even though Ohio State was one of the better running teams in the country and would rely on the run game heavily, there was no way in hell LeBron was going to have less than 500 receiving yards again, even though he was going to have to compete for targets with Marvin Harrison Jr. and JSN, two future first round picks. But LeBron was built like if Calvin Johnson and Thanos had a kid, mixed with the jumping ability of a kangaroo with massive hands. And you know what they say about guys with big hands: easier to catch a football, you absolute freaks. Thankfully, Ohio State's first game of the season was against Navy, so LeBron could just do whatever he wanted to and continue to work on his craft out there. Seeing as this was the first game of the season and LeBron had already had double-digit catches for over 100 yards, things were looking up. We were in week 2 with one of the biggest games of the season already. The two top teams in Ohio, Cincinnati and Ohio State, were going at it. There was obviously a lot on the line here, and not just the fact that the winner of this game will probably be propelled into a top 3 spot. They were also fighting for bragging rights for the best team in Ohio, and drops like that one by LeBron just weren't gonna cut it. So the next time he got the ball in his hands, he would take it for a touchdown. With Ohio State settling for a field goal in the third quarter, this was still a one-possession game, and LeBron decided to put things in his own hands, catching the ball down the sideline, but again would have to settle for a field goal. Ohio State's defense would make a stand, however, and on 4th and goal would force a turnover, which was enough to escape with a win. Once LeBron James became the number 2 receiver in Ohio State, it was going to be difficult to dethrone JSN as the number 1 receiver, because every time he had a position battle, it was just a tough ask against the Ohio State defense to try and win. Now, I'm not saying that LeBron was giving up, but damn, it's a tough ask, and there just weren't enough opportunities. But it truthfully didn't even matter, because when it was game time, LeBron was showing up, and being the number 1 or number 2 receiver really didn't make much of a difference, because CJ Stroud was going to deliver the ball to whoever was open, and that was usually LeBron. With Ohio State taking on another team from Ohio this week, it was more about bragging rights than anything, because as the number 2 team in the country, they should be a blowout. And with just seconds left in the half, LeBron James will catch this ball down the seam and take it all the way in for a touchdown, extending the small lead that they had. But Kent State wasn't just going to roll over and die because Ohio State was ranked 2nd in the country, so everything needed to be earned this game, and LeBron would run over that defender like his name was Dirk Nowitzki, as Bron would end up with his first player of the game award. LeBron was literally and figuratively the biggest red zone target for Ohio State, and it was surprising that number 15 Virginia Tech wasn't going to key him in the red zone. But in the second quarter, with it just being a 7-0 game, Virginia Tech would intercept this bubble, and Virginia Tech was able to convert that opportunity into some points before the half, tying it up 7-7. But Ohio State was known for putting up points before the half, and with this touchdown to Cade Stover and another opportunity with just seconds left in the half, LeBron would catch this pass, and instead of risking it with 0 timeouts to go for the touchdown, would step out of bounds to go for the field goal. In the fourth quarter, LeBron would make a key block on the edge to let CJ Stroud walk in for the touchdown, and Ohio State would be able to run away with this one. LeBron would start off his next position battle against JSN hot with this catch over the middle, but by the time the last play of practice came around, he just wasn't able to do enough to secure that number 1 receiver spot. Ohio State would start conference playoff against Wisconsin, who was undefeated at the time, and it was absolutely pouring out, meaning that the passing game should theoretically be struggling, and Ohio State should be keeping this ball on the ground, but they were looking for LeBron regardless of the weather. Even though LeBron was getting himself open and was making big play after big play, he really didn't have the shiftiness to make guys miss at 6'8", so he needed strong hands to make plays, and there was going to be absolutely no way in hell he was going to let a little ass corner jam him up at the line, as he would catch this pass and take it all the way inside the 5 and would get rewarded with this touchdown, again just before the half, something that Ohio State was now known for. This Ohio State team clearly wasn't the same team as last season, and they were a lot more complete, with the defense doing a great job and the offense complementing it. This team was destined for greatness. However, when it came to practice, the chosen one LeBron James was getting his ass work, and it looked like he was never going to take over that number 1 receiver spot from JSN. But LeBron didn't really take it personally, and even though he did want to be the number 1 clear-cut option, he was happy to contribute in whichever way he could for this number 1 Ohio State team. And I mean, let's be honest, this is LeBron James after all. In 10 years, he's going to say he was the number 1 receiver even if he wasn't. You know it's LeCap. Surprisingly, Northwestern was in this game with Ohio State in the first half, and it was 10-7. But again, just before the half, as they built an identity on this, Ohio State would bring it all the way down and kick a field goal. And in the third quarter, the floodgates would open up as LeBron James James would catch this touchdown, and then with an all-out blitz by Northwestern, Ohio State would make them pay for it as Braun would catch this out and take it all the way down into Northwestern territory. And it was definitely surprising to see LeBron get caught from behind, but on that same possession, he'd route up the defense and catch this ball in the end zone, putting this game away as he'd have a career day. This Penn State team has been haunting Ohio State since last season, as this was the team that upset Ohio State initially, and things were not looking great early on, as Ohio State had to continue settling for field goals, and they were down just before the half. Ohio State's magic just before the half didn't continue against Penn State, and they were struggling in this one. Ohio State was getting smothered by Penn State's defense, and to make things worse, JSN would get hurt, and even with a hurt Jackson Smith-Njigba, this man LeBron still couldn't get that #1 receiver spot. And I know that Ohio State defense is elite, but at this point it was becoming a meme. But Braun didn't hang his head for too long anyways, because against Minnesota he'd take this touchdown in the first quarter, which propelled them to this 24-3 lead going into the fourth. And even though Braun was 6'8" with a crazy spectacular catch rating, he didn't have a lot of catches like this one. So it was nice to see that as Ohio State would bounce back from that loss. It was a blizzard in Columbus, and this man LeBron James did not want to be out there because he was dropping 50-50 balls, and then when he got the ball on this jet sweep, things took a turn for the worse. Braun would get hit, but it wasn't even that hard of a hit, and he would fumble it, and his dramatic ass gonna get up like he just got shot in the stomach with a 50 cal sniper. Like, come on bro, you doing too much right now. I know you flopping because you just had that fumble and you trying to make it seem like, oh, I only fumbled because I got hurt. Everybody knows how the game goes. But if Ohio State wanted to win this game, LeBron needed to stop pretending like he was hurt and he needed to go back out there and do something. But after getting blown up by this corner, I thought, okay, maybe he actually is hurt. Ohio State was down 12-7 to Illinois, and with the game on the line on 4th and 2, Braun and CJ Stroud weren't on the same page. But Ohio State's defense will bail him out, forcing a turnover and getting the ball back as Braun would take the go-ahead touchdown. It was still a 1-point game, so Ohio State needed the 2-point conversion, and of course LeBron would find a way to get open in the corner of the end zone, giving them a 3-point lead. The defense that had been playing masterfully needed to make one more stand, and that's exactly what they would do, especially since Illinois was stupid enough to not throw it down the field on 4th and 18. Ohio State would barely escape this one with the win. Purdue came to play, but LeBron came for business, as he would take this tunnel screen and take it all the way down to Purdue territory. Again, this man just wasn't fast enough to take it all the way, and Ohio State would have to settle for a field goal. On 3rd and 7, LeBron was able to route up the corner and be able to convert for the first down, and I could not believe this hit. LeBron would end up getting sent into a different dimension, and he somehow got up like it was all okay. Like, no bro, stay down. And I knew something was wrong with him because when he came out of this break, the ball smacked him in the head and he didn't even realize it. The entire offense was out of whack at that point, and CJ Stroud would throw it backwards for a fumble. LeBron needed to come out the game. I'm pretty sure he was getting checked for concussion protocol, and they'd be able to score just before the half without him. But he'd be able to find his way back into the game in the second half, and he'd take over, scoring this touchdown to go up by 13. Despite his very obvious concussion, LeBron would catch this ball over the middle and run dudes over, putting his head down and his brain in some more trouble. And this was honestly concerning to see because this was how Antonio Brown became so cooked. But AB was a GOAT, so maybe LeBron was onto something. Ohio State was still the #6 team in the country, and it was going to be a long shot for them to get to the national title game at this point. They needed some teams in front of them to lose, and they needed to handle business. I'm not talking about just win their games. They needed to embarrass teams, especially 1-9 Indiana, who shouldn't even be on the field with them. And Ohio State would go up by 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, which was a good start, but LeBron needed to put that CTE behind him and do something incredible, which he would do on this ridiculous catch for a touchdown. That was the LeBron that everyone has been waiting for, and he was finally delivering. The absolute biggest game of the year, Ohio State-Michigan. Michigan was ranked #5 in the country with 2 losses, and Ohio State was 6th in the country with 1 loss. The winner of this game was going to go to the Big Ten championship, and depending on how all the other conference championship games played out, the winner was probably going to be in the title game. Braun would catch this touchdown in the second quarter to break the tie at 7, and Michigan wasn't going to be able to answer back, at least not until the fourth quarter where they tie it at 23, and now LeBron needed to do something. He catch the ball in the soft spot of the zone and make a couple of guys miss with the spin cycles. But with the game on the line on 3rd and 4, LeBron would try to catch this pass, but the DB would make a great break on it, so Ohio State settled for 3, and it was all up to the defense, which did a great job of holding Michigan, as Ohio State would be able to squeak by. Ohio State would take on Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, even though they had already beat them earlier in the season. That game in week 4 or 5 ended in an Ohio State blowout. But you know what they say, it's hard to beat a team twice. But after beating Michigan, Ohio State would get propelled to number 2 in the country. So at this point, if Ohio State won, they'd be in the national championship game. But Wisconsin wasn't going to make it easy. And just before the half, it was 14-10 Ohio State when LeBron ran this chair route and would get down into Wisconsin territory. And incredibly, with time running out in the half, LeBron would catch the ball and run a guy over to get the touchdown. There was absolutely no way in hell LeBron was going to let a couple of cheeseheads beat him and take his opportunity away from getting to the national title game. Ohio State was in the championship game against Louisville, who was the number 1 team in the country and was undefeated. And even though it wasn't really a surprise with all the talent on this Ohio State team, it was still incredible that they would get to this point after losing earlier in the season to Penn State, and everything was just going right for Ohio State from the jump. They would jump out to a 21-point lead and would just never look back. The Ohio State defense was on its P's and Q's as well, and on this 3rd and 13 before the half, would be able to stop Louisville. And with time running out in the half, you could probably take a guess at what happened. Ohio State would put points up on the board. Louisville was down by 25 at this point in the 3rd quarter, and they needed to put touchdowns on the board back to back, and that's what they would be able to do, cutting this lead down to 11. But with having all the momentum and the game on the line, the Louisville receiver would drop the touchdown, and LeBron James would end up completing this catch over the middle, which was set in Ohio State record for the most receptions in a season at 91, as Braun was starting to cement his legacy as one of the greats in Ohio State history, and this national championship was going to help solidify that. Let me know in the comments if you think that was a Mickey Mouse championship or if it was well earned.